Welcome to your deep dive. We're really thrilled you could join us today, especially because of this completely fascinating stack of notes you sent our way.
Yeah, this is a really good one.
It is. We are looking at excerpts from a rather provocative spiritual text today. It's titled "The 5 Signs of a Dangerously Anointed Life."
Right.
And I just have to say, looking through what you've shared with us, whether you are coming at this from a place of deep foundational faith, or, you're simply trying to figure out why life keeps throwing random, heavy roadblocks in your path, we've got a massive amount to unpack today.
We really do. The core premise of the material you provided is it's incredibly compelling.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it directly addresses a very specific, very human frustration.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that feeling you get when you're genuinely trying your hardest. You are doing all the right things, you're making the moral choices, and yet
everything just crashes.
Exactly. Inexplicably, everything around you seems to be falling apart. Now, we're not here to endorse a specific theology or push a religious doctrine.
Right, that's not what we do here.
No. Instead, the goal for our deep dive today is to explore the profound psychological and emotional framework this text builds. It takes these deeply painful, disorienting experiences.
It's like sudden isolation.
Yes, sudden isolation, severe mental fatigue, unexplainable delays. And it completely reframes them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core paradox of the framework hits you right out of the gate. And it completely flips the script on how most of us view the world.
It really does.
Because we have this built-in assumption, don't we? We assume that if you are doing the right thing, or, if you are chosen or anointed for a specific purpose, your life is naturally going to smooth out.
You expect the red carpet.
Right, the path will be cleared, the green lights will just start hitting. But this material argues the exact opposite. It suggests that a true calling or true anointing doesn't actually attract comfort.
It attracts intense conflict.
Exactly.
It is a striking contradiction to our modern narrative of success. The central thesis laid out in your notes is impossible to ignore. The text says, when heaven marks you, hell takes notice. The moment you are marked for something significant, resistance takes notice.
Wow. When heaven marks you, hell takes notice.
It's powerful. The framework we are looking at today asks you to consider that you haven't actually done anything wrong. You have just become a threat to the status quo.
Which is such a wild way to look at it.
It is. But for you listening right now, if you've been experiencing sudden, unexplainable turbulence in your life.
Like where opportunities just dry up.
Yeah, where things just feel impossibly hard. This concept is intensely validating. It removes the burden of self-blame. It suggests you aren't failing. You're simply carrying something valuable. And by the very nature of that value, you've become a target.
Wait, so if I'm suddenly overwhelmed by resistance and everything is going wrong, this author is actually trying to convince me that I'm on the right track.
That is the argument, yes.
I mean, that is a massive pill to swallow. It feels entirely counterintuitive to how we're wired to gauge success. But looking at your notes, that perfectly sets up the very first indicator they talk about.
Sign number 1?
Right. Intense, invisible battles without any clear, logical reason. The material describes this as sudden waves of confusion, a bizarre emotional heaviness, or just random crashing waves of fear or dread. And the kicker is, you haven't done anything to provoke it.
Nothing at all.
You didn't make a bad investment. You didn't insult a friend. It just arrives at your doorstep.
And think about the rationale the author provides for why this happens. The argument here is that the resistance or the enemy in this spiritual context doesn't waste energy on the ordinary.
Right.
The specific phrasing used is that the devil targets what carries oil.
What carries oil?
Yes. Now, if we look at historical and biblical contexts, oil was an incredibly precious commodity. It was used to anoint kings. It was used to consecrate priests and prophets.
So it wasn't just a symbol, it was an activation.
Exactly. It literally signified being set apart for a major, heavy purpose. So the argument is that these invisible, sudden, emotional battles are not random bad luck. They are a confirmation.
A confirmation?
Yes. You are encountering friction precisely because your potential is recognized in the unseen realm before it's even materialized in your physical reality.
He targets what carries oil. I have to admit, that is a stunning metaphor.
It really is.
And it makes logical sense, even completely removed from a spiritual context. You don't plan a massive heist on an empty bank vault.
Right, you go for the gold.
Exactly.
Wow.
You put your resources into targeting where the valuables are kept. And the notes back this up by referencing Ephesians 6.2, the idea that the wrestling isn't against flesh and blood, but against unseen principalities and powers.
Yeah.
But, translating that into everyday life, what does that actually look like for our listener?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, principalities and powers doesn't just have to mean literal demons in a strict theological sense.
Yep.
In a practical, everyday application, it can represent systemic resistance. It can be the overwhelming weight of imposter syndrome manifesting as an external suffocating force. It is the invisible friction of breaking generational trauma or stepping outside the bounds of what your environment expects of you.
That makes a lot of sense.
The mental shift this offers is profound, because so often, when we wake up feeling completely drained or gripped by unexplained anxiety, our immediate default reaction is to assume we are weak.
We think we did something wrong.
Exactly. We think we're doing something fundamentally wrong, or that the universe has just abandoned us. But this framework argues the exact inverse. It claims that this heavy exhaustion and these invisible battles are direct evidence of a higher calling.
Wow.
Your purpose simply carries weight. It reframes the struggle from being a symptom of your inadequacy to being a badge of honor.
Which would be such a massive relief for anyone carrying that kind of weight. It tells you that you aren't losing your mind. You're just standing in the arena. But the hits don't stop there, do they? Because once you're in this invisible battle, the battlefield actually shifts from the abstract to the incredibly personal.
It becomes very visible.
Yeah, you start seeing it in your physical reality, specifically in your relationships. Which brings us to sign number 2. The material points out a painful secondary phase, which is sudden isolation and separation from people you love.
This is a tough one.
It's brutal. Friendships just naturally fade out, dynamics shift dramatically, and doors you thought were wide open, relationships you thought were rock solid, just slam in your face.
What's fascinating here is how the source material rebrands this deeply agonizing experience of isolation.
How so?
Well, it certainly doesn't sugarcoat it. It fully acknowledges the visceral pain of feeling misunderstood, left behind, or rejected, but it fundamentally changes the meaning assigned to that pain.
Right.
It refers to this intense period of isolation as God's classroom.
God's classroom.
Yes. The core argument is that this separation isn't a punishment. It's a mechanism for protection and preparation. The philosophy is that before a higher power reveals you publicly, it must refine you privately.
And to really drive that home, the notes bring up some heavy historical examples, starting with David. Let's really think about his timeline for a second because it perfectly illustrates this.
It's the perfect case study.
Right. Here is a young kid who gets literally anointed. Oil is poured over his head by a prophet to be the king of an entire nation.
Right in front of his family.
Exactly. It is the ultimate promotion. You would think the next step is a chariot ride to the palace, right?
They pay your bags.
But what actually happens, he gets sent right back out to the middle of nowhere to watch sheep.
Back to the fields.
He goes back to isolation. And then there's Joseph. He has these incredibly vivid, undeniable visions of leadership and greatness. He knows he's meant for something huge.
He literally dreams that his brothers will bow to him.
Right. And his immediate reward for that calling is getting thrown into an empty, pitch-black well by his own blood relatives. He's sold off and eventually left to rot in a foreign prison for years.
Those specific narratives are crucial to this framework. They vividly illustrate the vast, often painful difference between a human timeline and a divine timeline.
The delay is staggering.
It is. Both David and Joseph experience massive, heartbreaking delays and intense, forced isolation immediately after their so-called anointing. Look at the psychological agony of Joseph's situation.
The contrast is crazy.
The contrast between the arrogance of his early visions and the profound humility forced upon him in that prison cell. The text synthesizes this beautifully by explaining that in this classroom of isolation, all external distractions are forcibly removed.
Everything.
The noise of other people's opinions, the crutch of relying on external validation or family connections, all of it is systematically stripped away. The curriculum in this classroom is absolute dependence.
Wow.
As the material so memorably puts it, heaven isolates what it intends to elevate.
Heaven isolates what it intends to elevate. Man, you really have to let that sit with you for a second.
It's profound.
It completely transforms the feeling of being lonely or sidelined into the feeling of being incubated.
Exactly.
But the curriculum in that incubator is brutal. And that leads us to the next phase of this process, signs 3 and 4. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the resistance moves inward.
It goes deep.
It's no longer just about losing friends or external circumstances. It becomes a war of attrition in your own head. The material highlights severe attacks on the mind and the emotions as the third sign.
This is perhaps the most brilliant psychological insight within the notes you provided.
Oh, absolutely.
It posits a very strategic pivot. If the resistance, the enemy, cannot literally steal your calling or your skills, it will change tactics and go entirely after your peace.
It goes after your mind.
Yes. The goal is to plant acute anxiety in the exact spaces where faith or confidence is supposed to be growing.
Which is so insidious.
It is. It fuels a cycle of overthinking until you start second-guessing the very things you were previously so certain about. The strategy of this anxiety is internal paralysis. It is designed to make the chaotic noise of your own doubts much louder than your intuition, your training, or your spirit.
And to prove that point, the author brings in another historical heavyweight, Elijah.
Such a dramatic story.
The narrative arc of Elijah is wild to think about. He pulls off this massive public display of power on Mount Carmel.
Right.
He literally calls down fire from heaven, defeats hundreds of opposing prophets, and experiences the absolute ultimate spiritual and professional peak. The adrenaline must have been off the charts.
An incredible high.
And then, almost immediately after this monumental victory, a single threat from the queen sends him spiraling. He runs away into the blazing wilderness, collapses under a broom tree, and literally begs to die.
Begs to die. Just hours later.
It is such a severe, terrifying psychological crash.
And that intense emotional whiplash is exactly what the framework is highlighting. The core insight here is that profound spiritual highs, or moments of massive breakthrough and peak performance, are almost always magnets for severe mental lows.
So it's not a coincidence.
Not at all. The material suggests that this isn't just a chemical drop in adrenaline. It's a targeted attempt to drain your mind right before your next miracle or right after a major victory to completely neutralize your effectiveness.
To take you off the board.
Exactly. But crucially, the text also offers an anchor point here, referencing Philippians 4.7. It argues that peace is the actual proof of power.
Peace is the proof of power.
Yes. The sheer fact that your thoughts are under such heavy attack is presented as proof of how dangerous your potential has become.
So if you weren't a genuine threat to the way things are, your mind would just be left alone. It's a wild, almost comforting way to look at severe overthinking or burnout. And speaking of things that absolutely mess with our minds, the framework flows right into another major indicator, sign number 4. Unexplainable delays and closed doors.
This is the one that really tests people.
Oh, it's agonizing. You are doing the work, you are praying, you are fighting for opportunities, you are putting yourself out there, and everything just falls through. The momentum completely pauses.
Nothing happens.
Right. Praying for opportunities that never open. It's the ultimate frustration for anyone trying to build something.
It truly is deeply frustrating, particularly in a modern culture that absolutely demands instant gratification and overnight success.
We want it now.
We do. But the framework offers a powerful, necessary reframe here. It focuses on the concept that every no is protection in disguise.
Protection in disguise.
Yes. Delay, according to this logic, is not denial. It's a period of divine development. We can anchor this back in the story of Joseph's years of waiting in that Egyptian prison.
Right, because he was in there for a long time.
A very long time. To the outside world, and probably to Joseph himself on his darkest days, it looked like a life wasted. But the text argues it wasn't a punishment. It was a mandatory period of character development.
It's like the ultimate lesson in delayed gratification. We all want the microwave result, hit a button, and ding, you're successful.
Exactly.
But this material is telling you, no, you're in a slow cooker, the heat is low, and it is going to take a long time.
That is a great analogy, the slow cooker. And the most crucial lesson pulled from this phase of delay is about the sheer danger of premature success.
The danger of it.
Yes, the notes explicitly warn that you are being slowed down to be strengthened. Because, and this is a vital concept to grasp, the text says, premature promotion can destroy what divine preparation was meant to sustain.
Premature promotion can destroy what divine preparation was meant to sustain.
Think about the mechanics of that. If you are handed the immense weight of success or authority or massive public influence before your character has been thoroughly forged in the dark, the pressure of that success will literally crush you.
It will break you.
It will. So a slammed door isn't a sign that you've been forgotten. It is a sign that the timing is being perfected. So that when you finally do step into your purpose, your foundation has the structural integrity to actually survive the weight of it.
Man. Premature promotion can destroy what divine preparation was meant to sustain. I mean, that is a concept that challenges absolutely everything about our modern hustle culture.
It goes completely against the grain.
So let's review where this leaves you. You've endured invisible, exhausting warfare. You've been isolated and lost your inner circle. Your mind has been an absolute battleground of anxiety, and every door you've knocked on has been slammed in your face to quote-unquote protect you.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It really does. The natural, logical question for anyone listening to this is, how on earth does a human being survive this gauntlet without just giving up?
Right.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, sign number 5. The final indicator is an unshakable, almost irrational sense of purpose.
The anchor.
Exactly. It's the reality that even when you are broken or in physical pain or feeling completely unworthy of the calling, you just can't bring yourself to quit.
This is the anchor that holds the entire philosophy together. The material makes a very clear, very important distinction here. This refusal to quit is not merely human stubbornness or ego.
It's not just grit.
No. It is described as a deep inner spiritual conviction. It is the spirit whispering, a voice that constantly reminds you, despite all the empirical evidence to the contrary, there is more.
There's more.
The vital takeaway from your notes is that the anointing, this special, heavy calling, does not remove the pain from your life. What it does, which is far more profound, is give that pain a purpose.
It gives it a direction.
Yes. It transforms meaningless suffering into a deliberate forging process.
The notes lean heavily on the words of the Apostle Paul here, referencing 2 Corinthians 4:8. He writes, "We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed."
Not crushed.
It is such a visceral, intense image. It perfectly captures the feeling of immense pressure. The idea here is that the fire that feels like it is burning your entire life to the ground is actually the precise fire being used to refine the gold within you.
It's purifying.
Right. It's not there to destroy your foundation. It is there to burn away the impurities.
And that purification process leads directly to the ultimate transformation described in the source material.
The end goal.
Exactly. You don't just endure this brutal gauntlet to come out the other side with a shiny new title or a bit of relief. You emerge with a fundamental structural difference in your character.
You're changed.
The framework states that through this process, you transition from merely carrying an anointing, which is essentially just raw potential,
the oil,
to carrying authority. And the difference between those two things is massive.
How so?
Authority is battle-tested. You don't just have a calling anymore. You have proven undeniable resilience. Every invisible battle, every lonely night, every bout of anxiety you survived was actually confirmation that you were carrying something substantial, something genuinely dangerous to the status quo.
So what does this all mean? The material wraps up with a very clear, very demanding call to action for the listener. For you listening to this deep dive right now.
It's a powerful directive.
It really is. It says, don't retreat, rise, stay hidden while you need to, stay humble in the process, and stay ready.
Stay ready.
It offers a promise that eventually, when the full picture is finally revealed, every battle, every closed door, and every lonely season will suddenly make perfect sense.
The puzzle pieces will fit together.
Exactly. It is an incredibly empowering way to summarize a whole lot of suffering and waiting.
It really is. And looking directly at the notes you sent us and how you can apply this to your own life. Whether you view this entirely through a lens of deep spiritual faith, or you treat it as a masterclass in psychological framing and resilience, it thoroughly flips the script on adversity.
It changes everything.
It takes the deeply human, very common feeling of being a victim of circumstance or feeling targeted by incredibly bad luck, and it completely transforms it into the feeling of being chosen for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
It hands you back your agency. It tells you that the fierce resistance you are facing is actually the exact metric of your potential.
It turns the obstacle into the evidence that you are going the exact right way. I genuinely love that shift in perspective.
It does. And this raises an important question, something we really want to leave you to explore on your own, building purely on the logic this text has laid out.
Okay.
The text warns us so clearly that premature promotion can destroy what divine preparation was meant to sustain. It makes you wonder. How much of our modern anxiety comes from demanding instant success? How much of our pain is actually self-inflicted because we are completely resisting the invisible, silent, and sometimes painful periods of delay that are actually required to build the strength to carry that success.
Are we just fighting the very preparation we prayed for? That is a brilliant and heavy point to end on, and something to definitely chew on today as you look back at your own timeline.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sending these notes in and joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you a powerful new perspective on whatever battles you might be facing right now. Stay strong, trust the process, and we will catch you on the next one.